Welcome in to another episode of Betting the Pitch. I'm your host, the real_G Warner on Twitter. If you're listening on there, watching on there, doing whatever on there, please hit the follow button. I appreciate it. We're getting close to 1,300, trying to get that number as high as possible, especially as we enter into Champions League season coming up. Not this week, as I mistakenly thought, but actually next week. Probably could spend a little less time watching soccer this weekend, but I think that will set us up really well for this week. On this podcast, going to go through the midweek matches, a little bit lighter than normal, so this might be a little bit shorter of a pod, but ultimately there's still a lot out there. We got one match in the Premier League. We got one in Serie A that's for some reason being played on Tuesday from last weekend, essentially. Then we got the Coupe de France, also the DFB Pokal, the German Cup. A lot of big games coming up over there. And per usual, I'll try to get a best bet for each of the countries we're talking about and an ultimate best bet end of show. I'll read a 5-star review from Apple Podcasts. Please keep those coming in. Love seeing them. Really appreciate what you guys, and it's a nice way for me to understand what everyone's getting from these podcasts besides just trying to find some bets to make early in the morning when you're not hanging out with your family, which no shame in that, by the way. But also, I don't know, trying to keep the streak going. I've had some really good days lately, some not so good ones, but I guess that is life when you're gambling. So we'll see what happens, and we'll ultimately hopefully get there pretty soon. All lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced juice is offered on almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in the podcast description below to fund your account. Use the promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. So we're going to start now in the Premier League. We got one match on Wednesday, and that is Manchester United hosting Leeds. Currently, Manchester United a 1.25 goal favorite. Over/under is 3. Jesse Marsch just sacked from Leeds United. I think that was something that was probably expected, if not, maybe not at this time necessarily. Especially because they keep adding United States national team players to their roster, and you figured that might work fairly well. Unfortunately, Leeds play a psychotic brand of football and didn't work under Bielsa. It got them to the Premier League, so it did work there. But this is not the same type of situation. They're quality, capable managers, players, things of that nature in this level. And unfortunately, it's not gone very well for Leeds. Now, this is a huge rivalry. It's kind of tough that it's on a Wednesday, but ultimately should be a pretty fun game to watch. And based on the total being 3, pretty high, I guess not so much by Premier League standards, but certainly compared that to a lot of the totals in Spain in the past few weeks, it's incredibly high, enormous, you could even say. But do you believe that and I guess I asked this rhetorically, do I believe that Leeds can hang around Manchester United? And it's hard to say that they can. Certainly when you can lose by a goal and still win a bet, that's pretty important. I don't know necessarily that Manchester United are going to be able to weather a storm that Leeds will try. Then again, a lot of these matchups have gone very lopsided in the Manchester United direction because Manchester United is the best team when they have space. They're not as good against breaking down low blocks. Not a lot of teams are, because that's a really hard thing to do. But Leeds aren't going to play that way unless this new manager comes in and completely changes everything, which I guess it wouldn't hurt for them to be a little bit more defensive than they have been instead of just being psychotic. But I don't really know what to expect from Leeds. So this is, I think, at the best, the definition of a wait and see. I lean to over 3, if anything, because I do think that Leeds are fairly likely to send everything forward when they fall behind and try to get on the board. I think Manchester United could get 3 themselves. I think Leeds could get some. I think Manchester United could get more than 3. So I think that's probably my strongest lean in the Premier League, and that would be the Manchester United over 3 goals. I'm going to move now to, I guess, Serie A. I think I mentioned this on the weekend podcast, but still, since it hasn't been played yet, still big name teams. With Salernitana hosting Juventus. Currently, Salernitana a 1-goal underdog at home. Over/under is 2.5. And all the juice right now on Salernitana at home. So Juve had a really good performance in the Coppa Italia midweek. On Thursday they played. This is probably why this is being played on Tuesday. But that is a competition that matters most to them right now because they have some 15-point deduction hanging over their heads. I don't really know if that's something that will be annulled through appeals courts and things of that nature. It seems to usually go in that direction. But it's a substantial penalty that has dropped them so far down the table that like Champions League doesn't even seem possible. And I think the whole point was to keep them out of Europe for accounting fraud or whatever the heck's going on, which seems like it's happening to all these big clubs, but we'll see if any of that actually sticks. They have more money to fund their lawyers than anybody else. So I imagine they're going to do pretty well in court cases. And at the very least, it's going to take a very long time. With that said, Salernitana has kind of been playing better than expected. They're an amazing story to stay up last year in Coppa Italia, but in the Serie A, like everyone thought they're going down. I think CBS here, who covers it in the US, or Paramount Plus, whatever they're calling themselves, everyone on set was like, they're dead. Why are we even talking about them? Which is hilarious because it looked that way. Salernitana's been better this year. I don't know that they didn't have this like winter transfer window, bringing everyone and try to save the club to stay in the top division. I think that might impact them a little bit because they feel like they're a little bit more comfortable to stay in the league. But Juve, they used their best lineup that they could. Like one of their first healthy lineups in as long as I can remember, which speaks to why Juve have not been that great. They have had a really good defensive run until they ran into Atalanta and Napoli the match before that and gave up 8 goals in 2 matches. But I think before that, they hadn't given up a goal in 10 hours or something crazy. So this one, I think, will be low scoring. I don't really know what Allegri is kind of planning. His style is to take a 1-0 lead and sit on it, which is fairly nice if you have Salernitana +1 to get a push, free movie type thing. Put $20 in the game if that's what if you're into, $100, $1,000, whatever. If you get it just returned right back to you in a push, not the worst thing entertainment value wise. It's a lot better than going to a movie for $20, put it that way. I think I lean Salernitana +1 and also to the under 2.5, which I think both of those kind of float in the same direction. And ultimately, with Salernitana being pretty juiced at the +1 right now, I'm not sure that we're going to get more than that. I think the +1 is a minimum that I think you could end up taking on Salernitana, but I like the under as well. And now I'll move to the biggest of the cup competitions, but I think is the DFB Pokal, though there's some pretty big matches and I suggest you hanging around for where the heck are these? I mean, it'd be really nice to have numbers to talk about. I don't know why. Well, we might end up starting. Okay, well, this is really fun. Live should have numbers. Can't seem to find them. Okay, we're off to a great start, clearly. And I guess there is the FA Cup to talk about too, which I could go through some round 4 replays. Problem is, there's a lot of smaller teams that drew in the first leg. The biggest, so we have Burnley, Ipswich, Fleetwood Town, Sheffield Wednesday, Guernsey, Luton Town, Sheffield United, and Wrexham. And then I guess on Wednesday, of Sunderland hosting Fulham in a replay of a draw. Sunderland, a half a goal underdog at home, over unders 2 3/4. You'd think that Fulham are going to go all out and try to win this competition because they're so safe right now, if you think about it, where they're in the Premier League, though they probably want to get into Europe just as much as they want to win the FA Cup. I think there's more, I mean, playing Sunderland as opposed to trying to get to a European place against all the other big names. I think you probably should focus on this one. So Fulham played Friday, played Chelsea on the road, goalless draw, did exactly what they wanted to do, stayed ahead of their West London neighbors, good derby result. And they've got until Wednesday to lick their wounds and rest. I think that's a big deal. So road favorites are not something that I really do much with. I usually go the other way, and it's really hard for me to avoid betting home underdogs at this point across all sports. But Sunderland are not exactly on Fulham's level, and Fulham are going to play aggressively on the front foot. That's just what they're going to do. So I think that's a good thing for backing Fulham, probably seeing goals. So I don't know that I lean to under or really to anything to do with that matchup, I got to say, unfortunately. Going to switch to potentially find some DFB Pokal lines. I think I do have them. So the first one is Sandhausen hosting Sports Club Freiburg, which is probably the club I follow the closest in the Bundesliga. If I haven't been to a match there yet, unfortunately, just Dortmund. But ultimately, I do have a FIFA 20 save going. So if you follow along my YouTube, if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. If you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, please leave a 5-star review. I'm not sure I said that earlier, but if you want to watch me suck at playing FIFA 20, I think it's like a few years old, but whatever. I try to stay up with the team and what the team actually does. And Freiburg's a team that I use. They're coming off a really tough performance at Dortmund. They really struggle with Dortmund when they go there. They usually lose by a lot. And I don't really generally think they play that poorly. It just seems to always snowball. This time, unfortunately, Kylian Sedilia, a young player, got 2 yellow cards for holding within 5 minutes of each other, it seemed, in the first half. And when you're down a man at Dortmund with 10 men for 80 minutes of a match, I mean, you don't have much of a chance, I don't think. But ultimately got a goal to kind of make it a little bit nerve-wracking for Dortmund for a little bit, but then Dortmund really just overtook them in the second half. Sandhausen are 1-goal underdog at home, over-unders 2 3/4. Sandhausen, I don't know what level they're on. I gotta say, I don't know if they're in the Schweizerliga or even the third Zweiliga. I don't know. Anyway, Freiburg, they should be very interested in winning this competition. They made it to the final last year, were a goal up and up a man, and somehow conceded an equalizer to Red Bull Leipzig, and unfortunately that was enough to send it to extra time, and they had a really tough time at a penalty shootout. Probably hadn't been in a penalty shootout like in their lifetimes. I would imagine they're taking this pretty seriously, and unfortunately, they've had a really rough start to this campaign, getting blasted by Wolfsburg, losing pretty heavily at Dortmund because they were down a man. I think they're going to take this seriously. They're going to play their best. That's what Christian Streich has done since I've been following Freiburg since like the COVID pandemic, essentially. So should see everyone here. And Freiburg, what it's been best about them is they're so deep, and they've lost some players, a lot of them, including one of their young studs and Kevin Schade, who just got bought by Brentford from the Premier League. But they haven't had too many deep cuts. They still have a lot of their roster, so I would expect them to turn it around sooner rather than later, and it could start here. The nightcap on Tuesday, the 7th of February, is Eintracht Frankfurt hosting Darmstadt. Currently, Frankfurt only a 1-goal favorite at home. With all the juice, so it might climb to 1 1/4. I expect it would. Any Bundesliga team against a lower level competition or opponent should probably climb higher. Seems very short to me, so it makes me wonder how much Frankfurt are looking forward to their Champions League knockout tie and also to trying to win the Bundesliga because they think they can do it. Over-under is 3 in this one. And that makes me feel like this one might be a little bit tighter because usually the big clubs versus smaller clubs have really high totals. I don't know enough about Darmstadt to really recommend them. However, next we have Football Club Nuremberg and Fortuna Düsseldorf. Düsseldorf probably the more famous of the clubs, but haven't gotten back to the Bundesliga after getting relegated in the COVID year. It's a pick 'em right now, over under 2.5. Don't really know what to say. Haven't been following either of these teams. But last but not least, Borussia Dortmund, they visit VfL Bochum. And Bochum are a 3/4 goal underdog at home. Over under is 3. I will be looking for Bochum to climb to +1. This is a big local derby. When I was in Dortmund in September, we went out one of the nights in Bochum because there really wasn't shit to do in Dortmund. Pro tip: just go to the game in Dortmund and go to Köln or something like that afterwards. Anyway, I'm looking forward to Bochum hitting +1. I hope that happens. I'm not sure that it will. They've been such a good home team. Smashed TSG Hoffenheim this weekend. Borussia Dortmund has so many defensive problems that I just wouldn't really ever rely on them on the road as a road favorite, especially going against a team that's going to be going for blood. Bochum certainly are trying to stay in the league and are worried about that. But I got to say, I feel like this is a good situation for this to potentially hit extra time. You're winning money if that in that scenario. Maybe you lose in penalties or whatever. But I think this is going to be a tough game. I think Dortmund are going to get pushed around. They've shown in the past they struggle getting bullied. That's what happens when you have 17, 18-year-olds that are stars all over the pitch that really can't handle getting tackled by 30-year-olds because they're used to just being like no contact practices. And unfortunately, I think that impacts them and how they play. Over under is tough because Bochum have been a terrible defense on the road, a lot better at home, but they also score a lot at home. So, and I don't think I can recommend an under ever with a Dortmund team, honestly. So I think over 3 would be my lean, as well as Bochum +3/4 at home. But I think I like the Bochum side better than anything at the moment. And since I guess I'll now move, or I guess I should pick a best bet for the DFB Pokal. And I think it's going to have to be Bochum +3/4. Let's see if it climbs a little bit higher than that. I hope it does. But until then, that's the way I lean. And I think I could still play 3/4 and feel somewhat comfortable. Single goal loss would be unfortunate to not get a push and instead lose half a unit. But I think that risk might be actually worth it. And last but not least, the Coupe de France. But stick around because this is going to be great. Angers hosting Rodez. Currently, Angers a newly promoted Liga team that has really struggled. at the league on level, but they get someone in a lower division. Currently, Auxerre, a 3/4 goal favorite with all the juice, so likely climbing to 1. Over-under is 2.25. I don't know that Auxerre scores many goals. I also feel like they're going to take the league on seriously. 4 teams are going down, so you might see some rotation here. If anything, I think I like under 2.25. But Rodez are simply going in and trying their best to, I would expect, to restrict Auxerre. But honestly, I don't really necessarily know that. I would have to do some fairly decent research to figure that out by Wednesday at 11:15 here in Dallas. So I might end up doing that. But until then, that's my lean is to under. Angers then hosts Nantes. Currently, Angers very favored. Pick them right now. Maybe climbing to 1/4 of a goal, though they haven't won in 13 or 14 matches. Finally got a draw on the road in their last match, which was awesome for them at Lorient, but ultimately not going to get them out of the cellar. Like, they are kind of adrift because there's 4 teams going down in Liga. They're a long way from safety. How seriously do they take the Coupe de France? They keep selling players that they can't really afford to sell, so I don't really know what to say about that. Nantes don't get a lot of respect, I'll admit, and seemingly are just way too high of underdogs all the time, and I back them a lot. Didn't go great early in the season, but they were balancing 2 competitions, and that didn't go well. They aren't having to do that just right now. I guess just this is the second competition. So as is Angers doing League One or League games on the weekend, matches on the weekend, and then this match here. I also lean to under 2.5 or 2.25 because neither of these teams can score goals is really the biggest knock on both of them. Nantes haven't had a great year, but they've certainly had a better one than Angers. Next, we'll move to Lyon hosting Lille, another big matchup of great teams. Lyon currently a 1/4 goal favorite with a lot of juice right now, maybe climbing to a half. Lille had a big win on the road, comeback win after a really awful first-minute goal conceded by a 17-year-old making a big mistake in his own box. I would hope that Jose Font comes back for this matchup. I expect he will because he got the day off on Sunday. But Lyon, they had a good late 93rd minute goal to cover the spread, killed my +1, was brutal. But I'm not in a position where I'm afraid of fading Lyon at this point. I really like Lille getting a 1/4 of a goal, and I think it might even climb to a half by the time this kicks off. And I like all that. I don't really have a feel for the under 2.5 because both these teams can score goals. Paris FC, not Paris Saint-Germain, are host Annecy. Currently Paris a 1/2 goal favorite, very juiced on the Annecy side. And ultimately Paris are a team that's a lot of people have been talking about getting promoted to Liga, but are still stuck in Ligue 2. Only 2 go up. So that league seems like it might be a little bit hard. I don't know a lot to say about both these teams. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing Annecy right. Toulouse then hosts Reims. Currently, Toulouse a 1/4 goal favorite right now at home. All the juice on Reims on the road, probably because everyone loves their manager, Will Still, getting fined 22,000 euros per match because he's not a registered coach or something like that, hasn't passed his test, but he's been great. Had a very sweat-free goalless under 0-0 under this weekend, which was great. Makes me certainly lean to under 2.5 here, though Toulouse are going to be on the front foot and they're going to try to score goals. I do think that Reims are worth looking at, though, getting that 1/4 of a goal. I don't know that I'll play them at Pick'em because I do think Toulouse has shown that they're a capable team that can stay in this league. Took a lead against PSG this weekend, got an extra day of rest because they played Friday. I think actually Reims played Sunday, so a couple days extra rest. That's kind of a big deal. Maybe I'm hoping this one falls down to Pick'em so I don't have to think about playing Reims because I think Reims' defense is awesome. The Champagne region boys are great, and they keep signing these really good players. Got a loanee from Arsenal who just can't stop scoring. Arsenal just has so many good players. It's incredible. But I guess I lean to Reims right now based on what that line looks like. Vierzon FC and Grenoble, I don't know anything about those, so I'm not going to waste anybody's time. Marseille then hosts Paris Saint-Germain in the Olympique. Pretty big matchup going on in this one. I think I mislabeled my tweet because unfortunately I put the home team second. So many rules in soccer. Anyway, Marseille getting a 1/4 of a goal at home in L'Orange Velodrome is going to be a huge situation. Crowd's going to be huge behind them. Paris Saint-Germain probably don't have Mbappe. That thing gets almost a guarantee. Likely don't have Neymar because he was not available this weekend. And I got to say, the Messi and Ekitike offense is not exactly the same as it is with the others. Messi is a much better Argentinian national player than he is a PSG player, I got to say. Certainly someone to be afraid against and someone I want to back as an underdog. But as a road favorite here, I can only lean Marseille. I guess the 2 3/4 juiced very heavily to the over. Tells me a lot of people think are goals being scored in this one. I don't necessarily see that because I feel like a lot of times in Le Classique, the matches they're not a lot of goals scored. Lean to Marseille, though, at home, getting that quarter of a goal. When it goes to extra time, you win half a bet. That's pretty nice. And I wouldn't be shocked if Paris Saint-Germain money comes in, especially because Marseille had a really disappointing result with a loss this weekend to Nice at home, which was good for your boy, Money in the Bank. Next we'll go Lorient Lens. It's the last matchup for the Coupe de France, and then I'll go through ultimate best bet style and summarize each of my favorites from the leagues, and then ultimately pick an ultimate best bet, hopefully a guaranteed winner. We'll see. Lorient, half a goal underdog at home with all the juice right now. Over unders 2.5, and Lens as a big road favorite doesn't make a lot of sense to me. It does because Lorient has not gotten any respect, so this is basically the status quo. But Lens have not been playing well. They are losing matches, drawing matches, really struggled with Stade Brestois this weekend and on Saturday, and honestly could have lost in general. They did get a rest advantage because Lorient are playing or had to play on Sunday morning, but that's not enough to keep me away, especially because Lorient will be at home. Crowd will be big. Lens will have a big traveling support, and they will be going after this game trying to win, but that really plays right into the hands of Lorient, who want to counterattack. So I like Lorient getting a half of a goal. I'm very interested in that. I think it's too high for right now. I'm really not even concerned about it at the moment. Lens are a team that I think should be bet against, and really everyone should be looking to bet against them until they right the ship. And I don't believe necessarily that they can do it. Or at least I want to pay. I'll pay to see it happen because it really hasn't happened just yet. So I'll take Lorient as my best bet for the Coupe de France this week. This is a Thursday match, I think on the 9th, getting half of a goal at home. And then I'll come through, I'll read a 5-star review and then go through and I will summarize everything up, get the TikTok camera going or the Instagram one, whichever one. From Puck's dad, razor sharp analysis. Warner's descriptive analysis of his recommendations allows a podcast listener to have sound understanding of the rationale behind prediction. Obviously up to the individual to ride along, but I have a clear picture regarding the why. Appreciate that, Puck's dad. Thanks for coming in. If you want to get on the list, get read. I'm happy to shout anybody out. Leave with a comment, review, Apple Podcast, Spotify, YouTube, something like that, and I'll get it in there. I guess now what everyone's here and what you've stuck around for, what you're looking for on Instagram. This is Betting the Pitch, episode number 166 with the _G Warner on Twitter, Instagram, wherever you can find me. For my best bets for this episode, midweek, it's kind of a light slate, but here we go. I like the Manchester United over 3. I like Salernitana under 2.5 hosting Juventus in Italy, Serie A action. In the DFB Pokal, the German Cup, I like Bochum getting 3/4 of a goal at home from Borussia Dortmund. And then in France, during the Coupe de France, I like Football Club Lorient getting half of a goal from Lens. And my ultimate best bet for this episode will be Lorient getting half of a goal from Lens. Our Racing Club de Lens is a great team, and they really want to fight you and go for it and try to score goals. Goals haven't been going in. They're a road favorite. I think they're going to have a lot of trouble playing right into Lorient's hands, trying to be going for goals the whole match. Lorient are going to counterattack and try to run down the pitch when they get Lens stretched, excuse me. So that's my best bet for this episode. Lorient getting half of a goal at home against Lens. And that'll do it for this episode. Thank you for following, jumping in, the _G Warner on Twitter. Please subscribe to the YouTube page, leave a review, do all sort of things. And we'll be back this weekend. Also, if you're checking me out for other things, college basketball stuff, of course, will be coming out. Stick around for that. My podcast with AJ Hoffman. And honestly, you probably should be getting some baseball stuff coming in as well soon. So stay tuned for that. Thanks as always for listening. And we'll talk to you guys later in the week.